So as states across the country begin to reopen, many people are going back to work.
And some employees are still worried about being exposed to COVID-19 in the workplace. Brad Glazier, an attorney with Boston Glazier, is here to answer some frequently asked questions. Good morning to you, Brad. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good morning.
All right, so first off, let's just start with, what is legally required when it does come to employers who are protecting their employees from the COVID-19?
Well, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA for short, regulates workplace safety. There's also a Michigan OSHA, they call it MyOSHA. And employers should be posting their obligations regarding COVID workplace safety. Employees can Google OSHA COVID poster if they want to see what those obligations are and bring that to the attention of their employer. It lists 10 things that employers should be doing, starting with encouraging employees that are sick to stay at home and providing personal protection equipment and social distancing.
Brad, let me ask you this. The story coming out of Texas here recently is as people begin to go back to work, this one restaurant said that no one's allowed to wear face masks if they're working there. If not, they're not going to be working. What's your stance on that, and is there legal footing for the employees?
Well, hopefully that won't happen in Michigan because employees should be wearing face masks, and the employer has an obligation under the governor's order, if employees don't have their own face masks, to provide face masks for their employees.
So we have been getting a lot of emails about this one. If someone is scared to go to work where there is a confirmed case of COVID-19, what can they do?
Well, the first thing that they should do is talk to their employer to find out what the employer has done in terms of workplace safety. They should also talk to their doctor about whether they are at a greater risk for COVID complications. If they are, then they should see if their doctor will write a letter requesting an accommodation for them, which would include such things as working from home.
Maybe talk a little about the employer says, hey, you can come back to work, but they're not so sure about that because of what's happening. Can they still stay home, or how does that work?
Well, that depends. They can ask their employer, and I would suggest that employees do this in writing so that there's a written record of it, to identify that part of the governor's order that allows the employer to be open if they're questioning whether or not they should be open. They can ask about the availability of masks, but if they are deemed to be an essential worker, if they're working in the healthcare field, if they're working in a grocery store, and they're not sick, and they don't have anyone at home, like a child that they're looking after because the child is home from school, they can either go to work or they can risk being fired.
Okay, and that brings us to our next question too. What happens if someone does not want to go into work at this time and ends up getting fired? What kind of legal footing do they have?
Well, that depends. If the employee does not want to come back to work and they do not have any COVID symptoms, they're not at higher risk for COVID, they would just prefer to be at home, either because they're getting more money being paid on unemployment or because of generalized concerns about COVID safety, then they risk losing their unemployment benefits.
Let me ask you a question, Brad. Do you think that we're going to start to see maybe some more legal movement here as we move through this, especially when it comes to employers versus employees, that kind of thing?
The cases are just now sort of trickling through the system. So even in the unemployment arena, those cases haven't gotten to the stage where an administrative law judge would hear the matter. But certainly the plaintiff lawyers that I'm talking with, the folks that represent employees, are looking at all the laws. There's quite a few new federal laws that have been passed, and I do anticipate litigation once we're over this pandemic.
All right, we will keep posted on that one. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.